again, Jim Dowson here, guest presenter with the Daily Templar Report. How are you? I'm still in this limbo land. I'm very sorry, it should be over soon, but there we are. How you doing? Let me just see who's in the room. I've got to do this myself. This is all very peculiar. Okay, let me see now, let me see. Okay, see. William Petit, how you doing? I can hear a lot of techie guys in the background. Am, am I supposed to be? Am I supposed to be hearing the techie guys in the background? I don't know. All right, good stuff. Here we go. William Petit, how you doing? Paul Telford, Joseph Taylor, and Tony Robello. Andy, how you doing, my dear friend? Mick Cherry, how you doing? Gary Hardwick, Genius Fortunas, how are you? Neville Walker, Jonathan Bedeen, how you doing? And your good lady, Donald Pollock, Philip Milne, a Scotsman, good man himself. Christopher Stride, Tara Temple, howdy partner. Malcolm Cook, how you doing, Malcolm? Nice to see you. Good man himself. I'm glad we got that sorted out for you. Big shout out for Malcolm. John Andrews, Scott Rash. No, I don't have the belt. I'll have none of it. Oh, here, Templar, that's us. Aye, that's a donate link to the St Donald Templar Priory Project. The first thing is the chapter house. Show you some pictures of that later. It's quite impressive. Troy Otto down in Florida, lucky man. EMS Rejuvenation. That's Mr. Machocha. I did know how to say it, but I forgot again. Joseph Taylor. Chris White, how you doing, Chris? Nick, how you doing, Chris? Nick, I'm going to be talking about one of your things today, and that's Belarus. You're the expert, but I'll have a stab at it. TT Foley, Stuart Duncan, Timothy Cost, Jim Young, Lady Rotha, nice to see you in, Lady Rotha, good to see you again. Elliot Lamb, good evening yourself, Timothy Cost. Who have we got here? William Mumford, John Wilnot, Barclay Burker, God bless you, Colton Strait, all good brothers here. Scorpion, how you doing, Scorpion? I like to see him in. Coltrane, Martin Butler, John Knott, yeah, John Knott, Greg Hoth, this is a horrible thing to work at, Dan Guerra, Andy McCoy, Conrad Broom, how you doing, Conrad? Les, I was wondering where you were, Androkovich, Buck Myers, Jay Brown, Brian Payton, and that's it, I think, for right now. Well, good. Oh, it keeps going on. And Marty in Leeds. Marty, how you doing? Warriors of Christ, you better believe it. Soldiers in the battalions of the Lord God Almighty. And we apologise to nobody for it. So there. Well, listen, before we get started, and it's so good to see you. I know this isn't ideal. Normal services will resolve shortly. But in the meantime, you haven't to put up with this. Well, let's read a wee bit of scripture, because you know that's what it's all about, and I like reading it. Read yesterday about Saul of Tarsus on his way to Damascus, and they had the amazing conversion experience. And well, it goes on from there. So he's really got a shock, and he's been blinded with this big light. And he said in chapter 10 of Acts 22, and I said, what shall I do, Lord? See, immediately, he didn't have to go and consult books. And is this real? And what's happening? No, I knew immediately. When the Lord touches you, you'll know about it, folks. And so this is Paul now, Saul of Tarsus. And he said, what shall I do, Lord? And the Lord said unto him, arise and go into Damascus. And there it shall be told of thee all things which are appointed for thee to do. And when I could not see for the glory of that light, being led by the hand of them that were with me, I came into Damascus. And one Ananias, a devout man according to the law, having a good report of all that Jews which dwelt there, came unto me and stood and said unto me, Brother Saul, will receive thy sight. And the same hour I looked up upon him. And that's what happens when you get right with God or you follow God. You have vision, you have sight. So why is it that all of you people, and I presume it's all of you people watching me right now, understand that COVID is far more than Kung Flu? Why is it that all of you people watching me right now understand the whole carry on about vaccines, big tech, the underground operations that really run our planet? Why is it that you watching this right now understand that the world is going to hell in a handbasket, but your families don't? Your brothers, your sisters, your mothers, your fathers, your sons, your daughters, your aunties, your uncles, your workmates, they know nothing of it. They think, guess what? You're mad. They think you are a lunatic. You're a crazy person. But no, it's because we have God and he gives us sight, 20/20 vision. So it's quite remarkable that Out of all the people in this world, God has chosen you to have the sight. And there's many of us. There's not that many. You know, you'd be a drop in the ocean compared to mankind. But don't beat yourself up if your mother or father, even your husband or wife, doesn't understand. Why would they understand? How could they understand? We've been given great insight by God, and that's why we understand what's going on in the world. And there's some right-wing people or conservatives who look as if they understand, but they don't really. I'll give you a good example. In especially in Ireland at the moment, it already happened in England, but in Ireland, they're going through a transitional period where there's lots and lots of so-called right-wing groups, patriotic groups, nationalist groups springing up. But nearly all of them are blind. Some support abortion. Some support homosexual marriage. Some support the whole LGBTQ plus blah, 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 blah. A lot of them are against the death penalty. Nearly all of them are pro-EU. So that shows you, it proves to you that they don't have the vision, the sight that only God can give. Imagine an Irishman wanting to stay in the EU. I would suggest it'd be far better bringing the Brits back, having the Queen rule over them again, rather than Angela Merkel. At least the Queen of England's a wee bit of graciousness about her, unlike Merkel. And at least the Brits make some good stuff, and they do that marching about well, don't they? They do all that pomp and circumstance where you can have all that back in Dublin again. You can have it all back. You can have the British soldiers marching about your streets again, because if you stay in the EU, folks, you're going to have European soldiers on your streets. And that's a fact. In my opinion, because I am an Irishman, an Ulster Irishman, I don't want either Brits, Germans, Frenchies, or anybody else on my island. I don't need them. We don't need them. But that's what's happening. And it happened 10 years ago in England, the same thing. The conservative right wing was completely subverted by people like, what do you call that guy, Levant, Ezra Levant and his news network, Zionists, I may add. And they paid people like Tommy Robinson and many others, not just Tommy Robinson. Tommy takes the flak for it, so he should. But other people took the shekel. Other people took the money and went down that line. So you could be as right-wing as you want, as long as that purely consisted of being anti-Islam, pro-free speech, pro-LGBT, and pro-multiculturalism. The only thing you could say was you're against Islam. That was it. And that happened in England the last 10 years. Now it's happened in Ireland. But there's other good people in Ireland. There's several good organisations in Ireland. You know, we are very friendly and we're very in much admiration of the Sean Ahern boys, seed of the Irish, and a big fella called, where is he? He's in here. I thought I'd seen him a minute ago. Niall McConnell. And there's another fella working with him now called Hero. Two fine guys. I can still, for some reason, I can still hear the techie guy coughing and spluttering. I don't know. Techie guy, what's up with you? You think your mic's on or something? I don't know, but don't worry. It's not too bad. As long as you... What's it? Made you sick? Made you ill? Made the Irish boys ill. But listen, I know it's terrible, but that is it. Why is it acceptable for a sovereign nation born out of blood, sweat and tears, and a very recent nation, 100 years ago, just 100 years ago now, to kick out one imperial power to replace it with another imperial power? And the absurdity of right-wing, so-called right-wing nationalist groups in Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, saying that they support EU domination is an obscenity to me, an obscenity. You know, my family had to leave the South during those times, and it was great turmoil, and many people died, and there was a lot of turmoil in the country. And after 800 years of getting rid of the English, you have 70 years on your own, nice and free, lovely jubbly, maybe not so rich, but what's money? And then you give your entire sovereignty over to a bunch of Krauts and Frenchies. It doesn't make sense, and I'm against it. And I think Ireland down there should have nothing to do with the EU. But that's not the point. The point is this: if anybody who says the right wing comes and tells you they support the EU, whether you're Irish, French right wing, German right wing, Dutch, Belgian, anything else, they're wrong. They're off their head. Be very careful with them, because scratch the surface, you'll find they're into a load of other things. Look at America as well. Look at the amount of American people, who, not so much now, but in the old days, they were so keen on this United Nations. You remember that, my American chums? Oh, the UN's a wonderful thing. If we could do a hands up in this room right now, how many people now think the UN is a wonderful thing? If you do, there's something wrong with you, and you're on the wrong channel, my friend. You're on the very wrong channel. No, this is the problem. It's outrageous, and everybody's just going along with this. And I want to talk about the UN here and the EU. And you know something? Maybe Ireland will wake up once it's dragged into a war. I'm not downplaying the Irish War of Independence, but there wasn't many people killed, a few thousand. And then the civil war that had between themselves, pro and anti-treaty, there was maybe 3,000. So you're talking maybe 5, 6, say 7,000. Let's say 10,000, but it's probably double the real figure. It's nothing. If you get dragged into a real hot war with Russia or something like that, there'll be 50, 60, 70,000 Irish sons coming home in body bags, and hundreds of thousands, millions maybe, of British boys coming home in body bags. That's what these lunatics are attempting to lead us into. I want to tell you why. Over the last couple of years, and remember the Templar stood out we were right on a limb on this, and many of our decent supporters, even in America, thought we were wrong at one time when that whole thing kicked off in Syria. We told people from day one that this was the American deep state and the British establishment launching a proxy war on Russia using, do you remember the term friendly terrorists? Friendly terrorists. That's crazy stuff. I was getting a feedback there. Techie guy, I'm getting terrible feedback. It's coming through me. I don't know where it's coming from. Seems to be gone now. Maybe. It's fine. It's okay now. And I mean we, the British and the Americans, we supplied jihadi headcutters with the most sophisticated field artillery and air support. And that allowed, for the first time in the history of mankind, a terrorist group to become an army. You know, the town of Mosul in northern Syria had nearly 1 million Christians in it. And that town was taken without a headcutter jihadi entering it. They didn't even go within 10 kilometres, 7 miles before the town was abandoned. Why? Because the jihadis used field artillery. If anybody's been in the forces, you know the difference between an army without artillery and one with. One wins, one loses. And they shelled that city from 20 kilometres away. And people had no choice but to get out of it. And we done that. We supplied them with heavy vehicles. We done everything. And the Russians then fought back with the Hezbollah and people like that, and they were victorious. And Assad, who's a friend of the Christians, won. If he hadn't won, my friends, Britain and America would have ensured the death, the annihilation of every last Christian in the Middle East, who are already hanging on with their fingertips. We also seen then Ukraine. Now, this is incredible. This is incredible. Just try and get this into your head. How are we doing for time? Just try and get this into your skull for a wee minute. The time's all right. Ukraine. Half of Ukraine, the western half of Ukraine is basically Polish Catholic, Roman Catholic. The eastern half are Russian people of Orthodox religion. In the west, there are hardcore, I mean really hardcore Nazi gangs who also fought for the Nazis during the war. The British, the French, the Germans and the Americans financed the street gangs, the hooligans, the thugs of the Nazis. Financed them and armed them to depose an legally elected president. He was legally elected under supervision. There was no shenanigans. He was elected fair and square. But we in the West didn't like him, because he was going to walk towards the east more than he was going towards the west. So our governments financed hardcore neo-Nazis to get and depose him. And not only that, to replace him with a Jewish gentleman. It just gets madder and madder and madder. And that war's still rumbling on. Thousands have been killed. Whole towns have been destroyed. You maybe don't get that in America. I know we don't get a lot of it in Britain, but we've been there. It's devastation, destruction, and horrible mayhem. And it's brother against brother. It's Catholics fighting Orthodox people, white men fighting white men, brothers fighting brothers. And we did that. The West did that. The Americans and the British, we did that. Now, we're the crack at it again in Venezuela. I mean, don't think I'm a communist lover. I hate them. But, you know, it's not our business. It's not our business, other people's countries. But now, the most dangerous of all has just emerged, and that is Belarus. Belarus. Officially, it is a communist country. But our people have been there. It's the most right-wing, conservative, well-managed country you'll ever see in your life. It is exceptionally well run. But their heart lies to the east. Their brain lies to the west, but their heart lies to the east. Look at the Belarusians. They're Belarusians. They are Russians, really. They're Russians. It's like, it's even closer than America and Canada. It's much closer. It's like Midwesterners, Texans. It's the same thing. They're the same people. However, we have now orchestrated there another coloured revolution. Now, imagine if Russia had took over Mexico and Russia had taken over Canada by subterfuge and regime change, and now America was wedged in by two blocks controlled by the Russians. What would the American reaction be? And rightly so. They'd attack, it'd be war. So now we've started this with the Ukrainians on the southern flanks, and now in the heart of Russia, Belarus, we're now doing regime change. How long is it before, and we tried all that nonsense in Syria, how long, ladies and gentlemen, do you honestly think that the mighty, and let's not forget it, they beat us into space, and they beat us in a lot of things. They've got far better rocket technology than us, and don't let anybody tell you any different. Don't let our government blow smoke up you. Their rocket technology is miles ahead of yours. Miles. How long do you think it's going to be before Russia reacts? How long can you poke a bear before it reacts? And by the way, I'm no Russophile or Russophile. I have told Russian delegates that whether I agree with Russia or disagree with my own government, I'm loyal. I am a loyalist. I am loyal to my country. And whether my country is right or wrong, I will fight for my country against Russia if the day comes. But I shouldn't need to fight. I shouldn't need to. It should never be happening. What is Russia supposed to do when we're flanking them in and picking off the satellite states that surround them? Their national security is at stake. So why wouldn't Russia react? You know, and I don't know if some of you were aware that right at the beginning of the whole, you remember the whole Brexit thing, the Templars were the only people saying it'll never happen, never happen. If these people need to start a war to stop Brexit, they will. And then Brexit went through eventually after 2.5 years. And we said, we're not out yet. We're not out yet. And people said, are you mad? Jim and other Templars, he's crazy. We're out. It's all done. Really. Then COVID appeared from nowhere. And people are saying, well, we can't possibly think about getting out now. No, that's the economic crisis. And then no doubt there'll be a war or a mini war or some kind of conflict with Russia. Look, folks, the people who run us have no intentions of ever letting us be sovereign again. And like our countries, every one of you is watching this show, our countries were not given to us. Something just didn't, the tyrants didn't wake up one day, the kings and the queens and the prelates to say, tell you what, why don't you run yourselves? Why don't you take ownership, sovereignty of your own country? No, our countries were wrested away from despots and emperors and kings by force of arms. You know, Mao Zedong said, freedom comes out of the barrel of a gun. Every one of your democracies was set up by us having to fight for them. The Americans, you had to fight the English and kick them out, and rightly so. And I'm very glad that the Scotch-Irish played a huge part in that war of liberation, that war of righteousness against a despotic tyrant like the English, not just the English king, but the English aristocracy. So I'm very proud of that. I'm also very proud that even the country I live in, Britain, resisted European pressure for hundreds of years because of the religious wars. We fought and we fought and we fought, and we would not go back into the fold. And I'm very proud of that. And I'm proud of other countries who freed themselves. And Ireland for freeing themselves from the yoke of English rule. Hundreds of years they were under that yoke, but they freed themselves. But how did they go to the king and say, listen, and the British government say, listen, we don't really think you should be here, and you're being a bit naughty, you own all the land, we own nothing, and we're starving, and we're doing, and you rule us. Would you mind going back to England again? No. They had to rise up, they had to act like men, they had to be men, they had to get themselves disciplined, they had to get themselves tough, and they had to take action, which cost them their lives and cost them their houses. Remember, when you're fighting a war, it might not catch you, but they'll go around and burn your house down and maybe do something to your wife and children. That's the price of war, my friend. But that's how our countries were won. And now they have taken them. They're not taking them. They have taken them. We no longer own our own countries. How do we get them back? And what they're doing with COVID and all the rest of it, they're tightening the bonds that that hold us down, that hold our chains. Well, I say we need to rise up and break free from chains. Am I preaching civil war? No, of course not. But I'm preaching freedom. And if these people keep putting chains on us and chains on us and chains on us, well, it's all over. It's finished. We need to wake up to what's happening. We need to use every available opportunity, because at some point in the future, war will be the only option. And that's the tragedy of where we are. So listen, I don't have my buttons, but you've got to like the thing, press the bell, click subscribe, and comment below, and share. Well, I want you to think about that, because it's a very serious thing. Now, following on from yesterday, because I don't think we had a particularly great response, actually. I think I maybe put it wrong. So let's try again. I don't know if the techie guy's capable of doing it. I don't know. We'll see. I want to show you a picture of what our chapter house did look like before we started knocking it down. It was just an old ruin. So I don't know if we can do that, Mr. Techie Guy. I'll leave it to you. Just tell me if you can. Okay, so that was the old chapter house. And I said yesterday that this was built in St. Patrick built it in the 1430s. No. These are the stones from the Cistercian Abbey, which was built on top of the abbey that St. Patrick built in 430, not 1430. The year 430. I know for you Americans, you'll be going, is that right? Yes, that's correct. St. Patrick was badly treated by the local chieftain, and in recompense, they gave him a piece of land. He built a monastery in the year 430. That's 400 years after Christ died, okay? And then that was there for hundreds of years. And then the Cistercians built an abbey there. And later on, the Augustinians used it as well. King Henry pulled it all down. The stones were used to build our priory. What you see there is out the back of our priory, just outside the priory. And we are now converting that into a chapel for the glorious dead, where dead Templars can rest or put plaques of memorial in. And the chapter house will be next door. Because remember, if your family come to see where your final remains are, or where their father or grandfather's plaque is, you have to have something like a chapter house where they have a nice cup of tea. Ever so British. They sit there and have a nice cup of tea. They can open up the books and see where you were entered into the books, and when you were noted when you died, and the number of your sword and all the stuff you ever took part in. That's what the chapter house is for. They can sit in there in relative comfort in a beautiful building and all the rest of it. So I want to show you the building work to where we are today. This picture was taken today, Mr. Techie Guy. See if he gets. He's under pressure now, you see. There you go. I think that's the picture actually from yesterday. But anyway, there's a big ditch there now. That's yesterday's picture. But anyway, you can see what we've done. We've cleared a fair bit. But that's fine. It's okay. It gives you a good idea. So that's been cleared out. The foundation is actually dug now. Thanks, Mr. Tate. Oh, there it's there. There we go. That's great. So there you go. The church is over at the left there. The chapel is over at the left. And that's where your plaque or your ashes are going to be. There's going to be an altar, and it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be unbelievable. Very, very old-fashioned. And I would say that would be more like the church St. Patrick had. Certainly nothing like the Cistercians, but the stones are from the Cistercian. So it's quite amazing. The foundations are going in. It's really beautiful. And I want to show you what it's going to look like. This is the Techie Guy done this impression, okay? Have a wee look. Look at those windows. These are reformed because it's cheaper, stone, and the glazing's a nightmare. Because they've got to be glazed around all those curves and everything. But anyway, we're getting all done on the cheap because, you know, we're frugal people. We are the poor knights. And there it is. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the chapter house that your grandparents, grandson or granddaughter will come to open the books to read up on where their grandfather, great-grandfather served and all that. Because from Roslin, we'll get copies of everything because the remains will be there, the ashes, all that. So we'll have copies of everything. And that'll be where they'll be able to go. And the good news is they'll be able to stay, accommodation-wise, in the priory. They'll have about 7 and 8 bedrooms for people to stay. So don't just think about you. Think about your grandkids or your great-grandkids. They can come here to Ireland. They can stay in the priory in a lovely... It's very old-fashioned as a priory. It's not the Hyatt. Very old-fashioned, but very authentic. And they can go and sit in the chapter house and read up on you, and then go into the chapel and have a private time with your ashes and a beautiful Templar. I think we're going to do them with granite, little granite boxes with your name on it, and they can sit there with God and maybe even light a candle for you. Yes, and I know I'm a Protestant, I don't come from that tradition, but there will be trays in there where people can light candles and do all that. Because the Orthodox do it, the Catholics do it. If the Protestants don't like it, don't do it, but don't start moaning. Even occasionally, I like candles. I think that's quite a good thing the Catholics have got. You light a candle and lose yourself in prayer, maybe a wee bit, or contemplation. Nothing wrong with it. So no doubt I'll get pulled up with all these Protestant theologians now, but give me peace, leave me alone. So that's where we are. But and there's not a lot of money needed. People have gave money locally and all that, so it's very good. But I think there's about $5,000 or $6,000 to be made up. And I said, yep, I'll go on and make an appeal for it. We did it yesterday, and 2 or 3 people responded. God bless each and every one of you. I really appreciate that. But it wasn't a great response, so maybe some missed it. Maybe I didn't explain it right. I think I was a bit harum scarum yesterday, so I've explained it to you. The links are in there, and the links are below the video. It's called St. Donard Priory building project or something like that. So please, if you can, it would be much appreciated, because each priory doesn't really keep much money. Money goes out in the mission field, so really appreciate anything you could do for the Irish monastery thing, because it's not just for it's Ireland. That's the thing. It's not particularly just for them. It's for everybody. So Americans, Canadians, Australians, English, Irish, everybody. That's their chapel of rest. That's for the battalions of the glorious dead. If you have served in the Templars, i.e. being a member, a life member, your remains can go in there. You're entitled to that privilege and that great honour. So it's a very important thing that we all get ourselves in it. Okay, let me see now. Who have we got here? Let's have a wee look here before I go on. Let me see. Time. Can't see. See. Okay, we've got a few minutes left. Okay. The UN is a satanic cabal, Marty says. You're right, Marty, and then some. Yeah. The English lion will roar. I hope so, Paul. You better believe it. And, let me tell you something. I'll fight the side of the Irish against the EU. I'll fight the side of the English against the EU. Anybody, listen, if you're a European Christian, I'm with you, and the Templars are with you. Believe that. The old arguments, I've no time for them. And anybody wants to continue with the old arguments, tell them to get stuffed. We have enough to worry about with all that nonsense. So what have we got? I don't know who. Somebody's having a row there. I don't know. But that's good. I won't get. I like just let people fight away themselves. Yeah. Let's have a wee look. I seen pictures with you there, Jim. I don't know. There's a picture above me. What is that picture above me? Wait till I see. It's the famous battle. It's the famous battle of Rorke's Drift, where the Welshies took on a huge force of Zulus and beat them. So that's good. Okay. Yeah. I think folk are no liking Putin. Let me be very clear on this. I don't particularly like Putin, but I don't like any who can say they like any politician? And somebody's saying there is Putin killed. Well, the West tells us Putin killed everybody who disagrees with him. But listen, I don't know if you've been to Russia. Russia is one tough country. And if I was in charge of stuff, I can tell you of a few people missing from Britain right now. Evil members of the press who write lies to destroy their country. Who could blame a leader for just getting rid of them? Who could blame a leader for getting rid of them? Am I going to do it? No. You're going to hear it here. And I think that's because I don't particularly hold to the modern interpretation of democracy. It's a farce. It's mob rule. It's nonsense. So, I think we have to be very, very careful throwing stones at people like Putin and that. Putin's a tough hombre. He's ex-KGB. If you mess with him, you're going to get hurt. And that's where it is. And a lot of these people who Putin has a trouble with, and they have big trouble with Putin to the point of they're no longer breathing, is because they're agents. They're taking the money from the Brits or the Americans. Listen, the worst thing a man can do is be a traitor to his own people. As I said, I think what Russia's doing is far better than what Britain's doing. But when push comes to shove, I will put on the Queen's uniform and I will stand against Russia, or anybody else for that matter, because I am British. I'm an Ulster Irishman, but politically I'm British. Very complicated, very confused for some people, but not really. Because if you're an Australian Irish or American Irish, you know fine well, you've got loyalties to America and you've got loyalties to the old country. I'm the same. It's no different. I've heard folk criticising that. And then the same American will say, if anybody touches Ireland, I'll fight and die for it. Well, I'm like that with Britain. But I am an Ulsterman, first and foremost. And Ulster's quite a big place. And it's part of Ireland. So there's no point in getting into semantics. Ulster is part of Ireland. So if I'm an Ulsterman, you could rightly assume he's an Irishman. But up here it's quite dangerous for people from my disposition to say that. But I don't mind saying it. My grandfather was a proud Irishman and he had no problem. And he was born in Cavan. So I don't understand the problem. But there you go. Of course, James Joseph Brooks says my loyalty is to Christ. Absolutely, but you can't just duck it that easy. That's an argument that's used by people sometimes when they want to avoid going to war. Christ, God, has given us nations. He's given us nations to defend. And nations sometimes need to be defended with your life. So that's where my loyalties lie. Obviously, ultimately, all our loyalties are with the Lord. And that's the way it is. So listen, that's about it for me. Oh, let me just show you this. Forgot about them. Let me show you that. That's these wee apocryphas. They're all going out now. I know a couple of folk have been waiting on them, but they're all going out. You should get them very shortly now. With this beautiful, put it up there. Oh, yeah, beautiful, beautiful book. Well-made Bible. Very, very, very flexible indeed. And it's very soft leather. Good quality, like calf leather. Oh, it is? Why don't you tell me? It's not like calfskin. No, it is calfskin. It says it here, calfskin leather. I was wondering why it was so soft. I thought this is like calfskin. I never have said it yesterday. This is like calfskin. That is because, ladies and gentlemen, it is calfskin. So do your homework before you broadcast in the future, Mr. Dowson. Correcting myself. Okay, folks, that's about it from me. Remember, like the video, press the bell, click subscribe, and share, share, share. We will be back to normal soon. And please say a wee prayer for the normal techie guy because he's got ulcers or abscesses in 2 molars, poor soul. And he came into work today screaming like a bear, stood in a bear trap, and the dentist can't see him. All this wretched COVID nonsense till tomorrow to rip them out. So he's in hideous pain today. He's going to be in hideous pain tomorrow. Don't tell him. But say a wee prayer for him that he gets a good night's sleep and gets the whole thing fixed. Because, you know, Robbie Burns, the famous Scottish poet, who wrote the most famous song in the world and the most widely sung song in the world. And they're going, who's that? Who's that? Robbie Burns, who wrote Auld Lang Syne. He said, the toothache is the hell of all diseases. And if anybody's had toothache, you know what I'm talking about. It's a monstrous thing. But there we go. Well, that's it from me. God bless each and every one of you. Again, please try and help the Donard chapter house. It's really important for the church operation. It's important to get that whole complex done because there's no point in having a house of the glorious dead. If your relatives turn up, there's nowhere for them to sit or read things or do things. The whole thing is a package. So please help us with that and be much appreciated. And may God bless each and every one of you. Well, that's it from me. Remember, we're always safe. Till I see you again tomorrow, if the good Lord spares me, stick close to God. You won't go far wrong. Doors vault.